higher.
Good evening, Guam. I'm Chris Barnett. In our top story, a new detention hearing was held this afternoon for Joint Mayor Jesse Blas in the district court. For now, Blas is waiting for a decision from Chief Judge Francis Tydenko Gatewood on whether he'll be released on conditions or remain locked up pending his trial in December. With more from today's hearing, our very own Adriana Cotero.
Even though I hit you, have slapped you, even though I have choked and have hurt you, I still went to court saying I didn't want you locked up. This was the beginning of an audio recording brought into evidence during FBI case agent Rafael Fernandez's testimony. Defendant Zontya Mayor Jesse Blas allegedly was speaking to his girlfriend, Vicky Lynn Tergezu, who made the voice recording. Also in the playback, the village mayor stated, quote, "You better think twice. I'm very connected in the court here. I can make expletive happen. They were pushing to get that warrant out, and it had nothing to do with Joey Terlahi," end quote. Blas said he was texting his connections and that Tergezu was already turning to the easy way out. Tergezu has been identified as the initial complainant that is cooperating with the government in their case against Blas. Blas was charged with 6 counts of extortion and 7 counts of bribery for allegedly permitting a confidential informant posing as a drug trafficker to use U.S. Postal Service village cluster boxes to smuggle in meth. During today's new detention hearing before Chief Judge Francis Tydenko Gatewood, FBI agent Fernandez testified additional information to his previous testimony given during Blas's arraignment. Defense counsel Joseph Rosano referred back to that testimony during the cross-examination, asking Agent Fernandez about the barbecue incident. It was stated in court that there were at least 6 people present, all of which are under investigation. It was during that barbecue that Tergezu was struck by Blas, and in addition, it was stated today that Joey Terlahi allegedly also struck her and was the one who dragged her into the house. This came after Terlahi asked to be introduced to Tergezu's female friend, and she denied his request and stated, "Why do you have a second expletive? You have a wife at home." Blas was Tergezu's third-party custodian, and she was in violation of her release conditions, having been drinking at the barbecue and initially appeared there alone. Rosano argued the defendant was protecting her. Attorney Rosano also brought into evidence the sealed plea agreement of the confidential informant that posed as the drug trafficker, Brenda, stating she was convicted for lying. During the redirect, U.S. Assistant Attorney Laura Sabataro asked in regards to Blas as the third-party custodian. Agent Fernandez said Tergezu was told by another female to call Blas, and that as long as she continued to have sex with him, then she would never be drug tested and warrants would not be acted upon by local court marshals. It was alleged that Tergezu did not know Blas prior to her hearing. Tergezu currently resides in Saipan with her parents and works for her father. Since the mayor's arrest, she has told FBI that she feels in danger, but declined being sent away for protection because she wants to stay with her children. Both parties argued on the Bail Reform Act, whether Blas is a serious risk, and on obstruction of justice. Rosana argued for the court to fashion pretrial release conditions, and Sabataro argued he is a danger to the community and should be detained until trial in December. The chief judge asked the U.S. Probation Office for the recommendation, and they said there are no conditions to mitigate and ensure Blas is not a danger to the community. As of news time, a written decision has not been issued. Until then, Blas will continue to be detained. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Adriana Cotero.
Clifford and Nicholas Shoemake and Kimberly Connor have agreed to jointly pay $10.8 million in restitution and have forfeited their rights of a TASI 17 condo unit. In district court today, they pled guilty. The 3 executives of Guam Medical Transport admitted to filing fraudulent ambulance transportation service claims for personal use. GMT was accused of defrauding the Medicare program of an estimated $11 million. The proceeds were used to go on luxury vacations in places like Hawaii, Europe, even Australia. For Clifford Shoemake and Kimberly Connor, the government has agreed to a lesser sentence and recommended to the court a prison term between 63 to 78 months, followed by 3 years of supervised release. As for Nicholas Shoemake, the government agreed to a period of probation with the length and conditions left for the court to decide. Expected to enter a change of plea in his burglary case, Brandon Acosta appeared in Superior Court. Acosta could face 2 years of jail time with the possibility of credit for time served. Judge Anita Sokola questioned if this plea would run concurrent with any of his other criminal cases. Acosta faces more serious charges for the rape and murder of 15-year-old Tamika Nauta. His attorney, Teresa Rojas, was unaware of the status of that case. As we've reported, Acosta has pled not guilty in the Nauta case. His attorney, William Pohl, in that case, filed a motion under seal for an evaluation, and he's expected to return next month in Judge Vern Perez's courtroom for a further proceedings hearing. Judge Sokola scheduled a motion hearing for November 27th. Well, more from the Superior Court now this morning. Judge Anita Socola scheduled a continued hearing from yesterday for Liana Jaylene Cabrera, who has still not appeared. It was stated in court that the defendant has an outstanding warrant, and Judge Socola looked to the government for a response, stating, quote, "Get ready to tell me what is going on and where she is. I'm hearing the FBI has her. What is going on here?" Tomorrow, various co-defendants in the major DOC contraband case are scheduled to appear, and Judge Socola wants to answer as to where Cabrera is during their hearing. Liana was one of the individuals who were implicated in the DOC contraband case. Well, after previously waiving his right to a speedy trial during his arraignment, felony escape defendant Johnny Atalig asserted today. Atalig is now on the same track as co-defendant Johnny Del Rosario. Earlier this month, the two defendants escaped from the DevCorp halfway house and were free for 12 hours before self-surrendering. Today, they appeared for a trial-setting hearing before Judge Maria Senzon. Defense counsels both say they received pages of police reports as discovery and are awaiting a disc. In addition, they plan to prepare a motion for the release of property that is non-contraband items from the halfway house to their family. Trial was set for December 4th, and their next hearing is November 26th for a pretrial conference. While still waiting for more discovery, drug defendant Leighton Borja appeared with his attorney Charles McDonald in Judge Anita Socola's courtroom. Borja, arrested back in August and was charged with possession of a Schedule II controlled substance as a third-degree felony and possession of a Schedule II controlled substance with intent to deliver as a first-degree felony. He was ordered to report to probation 5 times weekly, and today the probation officer reported there have not been any violations. Now, according to Attorney McDonald, he has received some of the findings, but not all of them. Judge Socola has scheduled a continued trial-setting hearing for November 26th. Chantel Renee Lefevre is charged with theft of property after her place of employment conducted an audit and found $14,246 was missing. The veterinary clinic suspected Lefevre was stealing money from the register. According to court documents, upon reviewing surveillance footage, they observed Lefevre taking cash out of the register and placing it behind the computer monitor. When GPD officers interviewed her, Lefevre admitted that between 2018 and 2019, she had been taking money, stating she was not making enough and struggling. And when she had requested for a raise, her employer asked her, quote, "What do I look like? A bank?" Lefevre accepted full responsibility and is willing to pay back the clinic. Well, should the Department of Corrections warden be a political hire? Public Safety No. 2 Vice Speaker Talina Nelson says yes. Here's more in this report. Bill 223 would change the DOC warden position, which is currently called the Correctional Facility Superintendent, from a classified position to an unclassified political hire. The bill comes as DOC Warden Alan Borja is on administrative leave pending the completion of an investigation into inmate escapes at the prison. The measure would allow DOC Director Samantha Brennan to appoint her own warden. Bill 223 would also require the warden have a bachelor's degree, 10 years of progressive experience in a correctional facility, undergo a drug test, psych evaluation, polygraph, and a thorough background investigation. The warden would also be subject to legislative confirmation. While the bill doesn't mention current warden Alan Borja, who has served at DOC for 33 years and was planning for retirement, Vice Speaker Nelson did have issues with him.
Right now we have some general orders within the Department of Corrections that conflict with the rules and regulations that have been promulgated. And so we're also looking at the director to correct these mistakes, and a lot of them were signed by the warden. The last term the warden stated that the prisoners run the prison. And so really in this mode, and this man has been there for so many years, there's no institutional change. So what can we do now? So let's try to move in a different direction, see how the community feels, and navigate it through as we move forward.
We asked Nelson if she was comfortable eliminating the highest classified position at the prison, and she responded there was still room to allow for upward mobility of rank-and-file DOC employees. If the bill becomes law, the warden would have more stringent qualifications than the deputy director, who isn't subject to legislative confirmation. We also asked the Vice Speaker if putting more political hires at the prison would help conditions at DOC.
If you had the capacity to hire a director and confirm a director or a warden if it was unclassified, I would like to believe that in that capacity we would advocate for the best person for the job.
Nelson added that staying status quo at DOC wasn't an option, and that by allowing the director to appoint her own warden and changing qualifications for the position, KUAM would not be twiddling its thumbs on prison issues. KUAM reached out to former DOC Director Frank Ishizaki about the bill. The former prison director said the bill was, quote, contrary to past practices. You always need a senior classified leader. One and done. Casino gambling was allowed to return to the Liberation Carnival this year, but if Vice Speaker Talina Nelson has her way, it won't make a comeback in 2020. The Vice Speaker has introduced Bill 226 to prohibit casino gambling devices and activities at the Liberation Day Carnival or any other fair or carnival activities in Guam. A total of 11 licenses were issued for games of chance at the carnival for June through August, and according to Reventax, the total amount of business privilege taxes and other taxes collected was just $15,000. Mayor's Council President Melissa Savares, Carnival Coordinators Mayor Robert Hoffman, and Council Executive Director Angel Sablan all declined comment. Sablan says the council officers have a meeting tomorrow and will review the measure. A bill to move the Guam Film Commission from GITA to the public broadcasting system dominated legislative discussion today, but after strong objections from the Guam Visitors Bureau, sponsor Speaker Tina Munya Barnes backed off on a proposal to fund the Film Commission out of the Tourist Attraction Fund. In a tersely worded letter, GVB President Pilar Laguatnia opposed the use of tourism marketing money for the Film Commission, especially since GVB, she writes, was, quote, neither given the respect nor the courtesy of discussing the measure. Barnes moved to delete the funding section but still pushed for a film industry here, which she says could bring in millions. She used a recent location shoot by the Netflix documentary Operation Christmas Drop as an example.
If I may. In the short time that they were filming on Guam, I want to share with you $250,000 were spent on 2,000 room nights in 4 local hotels. About 50 cars were rented from local businesses for about 1 to 2 months, and trucks and trailers were rented from local businesses. 50 Guamanians were hired and trained as crew members, and hundreds of extras were hired for background work. So over 200,000 were expended to local service industries as well when Netflix was doing their operation here.
Meanwhile, Speaker Barnes sent her own strongly worded response to Laguatnia, calling her assertions baseless and unfounded. Barnes says GVB was advised at least 3 times that GVB was part of the funding plan. Barnes wanted to take $1.5 million or $300,000 a year for 5 years from the Tourist Attraction Fund for the Commission's budget. It's not clear where the money will come from. Well, the Navy is declining to comment on reports that 3 ships with several thousand sailors and Marines will be making a port call on Guam this week, just in time for Halloween. In response to our request for confirmation, the Navy said it's unable to discuss and comment on specific ship movements or scheduling due to operational security matters. Service personnel are typically granted ashore liberty during such port calls, pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into the local economy. Well, stick around for more news here on Primetime. You're watching KUAM.
Get up-to-the-minute news, plus access to alerts, streaming radio, promotions, and more on your mobile device by downloading the KUAM News mobile app, available at the App Store now.
Now there's a technology that's lighting